I do have a question on sharing the screen. Will I be able to share my screen? All right, very good.
So we're ready to go? All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 5:32. Today is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. This is the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and I call this meeting to order. We'll go ahead and proceed with calling roll. Mercurio Martinez Jr.
Present.
Ernestina Catuvela. Absent. Mr. Esteban Argel.
Present.
Jorge Delgado. Present. All right. We will jump right into agenda item number 3, which is the presentation of process qualifications, granting, and other information pertaining to foreign trade zone designations. Floor is yours, Mr. Martin Guerrero, Webb County Appraisal District.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Judge. For the record, Martin Villarreal, Webb County Appraisal District. And before I start my presentation, I'd just like to take a moment to say, give you all notice that come March 31st, I will be retiring, believe it or not. After 32 years of working for the Webb County Appraisal District, I have decided to retire and take advantage of being a grandfather. Anyhow, on that note, I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce the new recently appointed Chief Appraiser, Bobby or Robert Paraguay. Mr. Paraguay is my Deputy Chief Appraiser, and he will be taking over on April 1st of this year as Chief Appraiser for the Webb County Appraisal District. So on that note, if anybody has any questions, I'd like to start our presentation. Everybody okay? We're good?
Well, we certainly want to wish you the very best in behalf of myself and of course members of the Board of Trustees of the Laredo College. You frankly have been a tremendous asset to the county and particularly more so to the appraisal district. So obviously you're going to be missed, no ifs or buts about it. So we certainly wish you the very best on your retirement.
Thank you, Judge. And again, it's been a pleasure working with you. I know that when you were county judge, I was just an intern, young guy, and here we are, 32 years later. I can't believe how time has flown. But on that note, I want you all to rest assured that I leave you all in good hands. Robert Paraguay will be taking over. He is a very intelligent person, and he has been waiting on the wings to become the chief. And I'm happy to say that the transition is going to be smooth. Good news is that there's no controversy. And one of my biggest goals was to make this process as smooth as possible so the employees will not be distracted by ongoing factors that are usually related to transitions like this. And I know that Bobby will do an excellent job. And I think you're all in good hands for the future. And who knows, I'll still be around if there's anything that you all need. I will still be around to facilitate any kind of request from you all on your part. So as you know, Judge, I've been involved in many things, 32 years, and I'm here to step up and help you all with anything. So I'll be available. Sergio has my phone number, my cell number. So he knows how to get a hold of me. So on that note, I'd like to introduce Bobby. Bobby, do you want to say a couple of words before I start with my presentation?
You're on mute, Mr. Paraguay.
Yeah, I'm mute.
Or can't hear you.
How's that?
There, you got it.
Perfect.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bobby Paraguay. Like Mr. Villarreal mentioned, I've been serving as his Deputy Chief Appraiser at the office since 2016. I've been with the office since 2010. And, you know, not to take up too much time on this particular subject, but I look forward to working with all of you. And like Mr. Villarreal mentioned, if there's anything that we can do to assist the college, to assist your constituents, don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to help. We are here to hopefully make the process easy. So I look forward to working with all of you guys in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hardwick.
So on that note, let's go ahead and get started. So I was, it was requested by Cesar to come to you all to do a presentation on foreign trade zones. And it is my understanding that you all have heard presentations from attorneys regarding FTZs and how they work. So what I'm going to try to show you, just kind of give you a real quick intro, but show you the impact that property values have based on FTZ areas that you all have approved in the past. I did get letters from CESA regarding some of these locations, and I'm going to show you what we have on the book based or what we have on our system when it comes to the values, whether it's real property or personal property. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. A foreign trade zone is a secure area that is managed by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency. It is an area that is monitored by them, and you usually find these in port of entries. As you all know, the city of Laredo is the largest inland port in the nation. However, let me just say that we are competing with other cities, such as San Antonio, Houston, the Dallas area, Amarillo, the Fort Worth area, and some of your smaller metros. They have created these zones so they can basically compete with one another. Now, what is the purpose of these zones? Well, these zones are mandated by the federal government. They fall under their purview, and basically what happens is it's a designated area. Consider it like a U.S. bonded warehouse or a duty-free store. If that merchandise is stored within this area, that merchandise basically becomes exempt as long as that product is being exported and is not being used domestically. And what we've seen here in Webb is that we have several foreign trade zones that have been designated. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We have several foreign trade zones that have been designated. And in fact, there's 6 of them that are highlighted in green. Can you all see my screen? Yes. Okay. This is a map that I got from the city of Laredo. And I want you to make a note of that because the city of Laredo is really the agency that starts the application process and works a customer through getting this designation from U.S. Customs and Border Protection agencies. So what these 6 areas represent is areas that have been designated as foreign trade zones. And basically, any company that wants to do business within those zones can automatically get them done just by going to the city of Laredo airport and applying. Now, any zone that falls, any application that falls in that area, it has to come through the different taxing entities. Now, one of the questions that I pose to my colleagues at the city is why do these have to be approved by the city when in essence, a foreign trade zone is a federal exemption that exempts personal property under the premise that that personal property is under interstate commerce, okay? Be mindful that when these areas that are considered for foreign trade zones, it's a designated area that is established between the property owner and U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency that is secured and it is monitored extensively by the agency to ensure that the company that gets that designated area fulfills all their obligations in regards to who enters the premise, what merchandise goes in, what merchandise goes out, how long did it stay, the value of that inventory, and where that inventory is coming from and going to. And typically, from our experience, those areas are designated in such a way that when you walk into them, imagine walking into a gated area, and when you go in, you have to sign in, you gotta get a secured badge. There's cameras, and it's being monitored to ensure that that product is being used for the purpose of what it's designated for. Some examples of inventory that we've seen in these areas are plastic pellets, aluminum bars, metal, sheet metals that are wrapped around in a big circle like a tire, and they're super heavy. And I believe personally that the reason that these foreign trade zones exist is because most of these products come from foreign countries. They come to Laredo, they then get cataloged, and then they're exported into Mexico, and then coming back from Mexico, it comes back as a finished product. And the product, I think, is secured for security purposes here in web versus sending it to Mexico and securing it in Mexico. So what they do is they'll ship that product as needed into the plants in Mexico. Typically, these products are shipped quick, and they do not stay for a long time in our city. Now, be mindful, only the personal property that falls within this designated area is what's considered to be commerce that's under interstate protection. And that protection is an exemption that is granted through federal law. Now, this product can be merchandise, it can be supplies, it can be raw materials. What we see here is raw materials. It can be a finished product. You can have a manufacturing company within this foreign trade zone like they do in the valley. And in that scenario, all of the inventory will be exempt as long as that product is being categorized and designated for exportation. Once that product is domesticated towards sale in the United States, then that's when the duties are added back and the excise tax that comes along with it gets added to the merchandise and it gets taxed. And it typically gets taxed at the destination where that product is located. So now, in Laredo, the Laredo International Airport, Manuel de Luna, the operations manager administration, is an individual here in the city that basically would be the contact person that manages foreign trade zones and directs the individual that's applying for it to the applications and the people in Washington that actually review these applications. In Washington, you have Elizabeth Whiteman. I did not get a chance to talk to her. However, she is the individual that is the one that administers the applications, reviews them, and gets them approved. Okay. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
No.
All right. Now, what I have done is I went and pulled out some of the applications that you all approved, just to kind of show you what we got. So there was a warehouse at 8511 Milo Road. Okay. You all got notice from Mr. De Luna, who administers or maybe even worked for the U.S. Customs and Border Protection about an application located at 85 Milo Road Boulevard. What I did is I went and pulled up the real property account so you can see that when it comes to the real property, that includes the improvement and the value of the land, the appraisal district appraises it at market, and taxes that building at full market value, okay? What I also did is I went and looked at their personal property. Now, be mindful that personal property is taxable in the state of Texas, but because this inventory is within that foreign trade zone, you'll notice that I have a value for 93,880. And it includes furniture, fixture, equipment, supplies, and vehicles. Be mindful that the only tangible product that's exempt under our foreign trade zone is the inventory. Everything else is taxable. And we go out and we do an inspection on the facilities, we put it at market. We also look at the business personal property, and we review it, and we add a value, or we retract. They follow a rendition. A rendition is a rendition where property owner will render their furniture, fixtures, supplies, their vehicles for these locations. And then what we do is we take that rendition and determine the value. So this property owner for this warehouse is paying a tax based on 8 million for the year 2022. Now, I caution you all, this is still on the works. This is not a finalized value. We're still doing our analysis. But I just wanted you to see that real property is not exempt. Neither is furniture, fixture, supply, vehicle, and equipment. And the only thing that is exempt is personal property. So now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I do have a spreadsheet where we looked at all the locations, and you're going to see in this particular graph, the real property, the business personal property value, and the total value for Milo. Then you have 5812 East Drive, the real property, and the business personal property value, and so on and down the line. Now you'll notice that this one has a value of 18,1890,000. However, you have a bunch of personal property accounts, which tells me that this warehouse is probably leasing the space to various locations. I mean, to various customers, and as a result of that, they probably have a designated area for one of these customers that holds inventory that's being held under the FTZ zone. We also have these other locations, and you can see that we have a warehouse for 7,100,000 for 13604 IH-35 Frontage Road. Unimex Trade Logistics, we have a small account, and I'm thinking that this is a new warehouse that just recently got construction, and more than likely, this right here is going to be increasing for the year 2022. Calades Road is a new warehouse. It's under development, it's under construction, and we have it tagged for inspection. You notice that there's no personal property account, but we'll be following up with that one. You also have the one for 8402 El Gato. You have Camstar Forwarding, and you have personal property and Rio. 302 Central Boulevard, it's a warehouse valued at 4.1 million. And you have several small accounts that have business personal property at the location. So these are the accounts that I looked at. And be mindful that when they do a foreign trade zone, they typically will do a small area of the warehouse to contain those products. Most of the time, they will not designate the whole warehouse as a foreign trade zone. What they'll do is they'll section off a little area And if they provide a service to customers where they're helping them with their logistics of the products, they'll have this area so that way they can facilitate that product for that particular customer that's bringing products from foreign countries into the US to be exported into Mexico. That's been my experience here locally. However, it doesn't mean that you can bring a product that's a finished product from Mexico into the US that's going to be exported out of the US that can fall under the FTZ. And as long as it's under that FTZ designation, that product is exempt until it either gets categorized as domestic, or maybe it gets shipped to Canada, which I think we see that today. Now, considering that we have over 12,000 trucks that cross our bridge daily, I can tell you that most of the products here locally, whether it's a product that falls under interstate commerce or a product that falls within the foreign trade zone, these products are moving super quick, and time is of the essence because they got to get this product to wherever location it needs to go. Once again, business personal property inventory that falls within this designation of a foreign trade zone is considered to be interstate commerce. And because they fall into the purview of federal law, this inventory is exempt. You all have any questions for me at this point?
No, Mr. Bennett, you can continue.
Okay, so we talked about zones. I showed you the map of the areas, and I showed you the values that we have, and we talked about the inventory being exempt for inventory that falls under the FTZ. And at this time, I'm pretty much done with my presentation unless you all have questions for me or for my staff. Now, I forgot to introduce Orlando Esparza. Orlando is my business personal property supervisor that manages the department that appraises all the business personal property that's tangible in the county. He's the one that basically prepared the worksheets for me. I want to thank him for preparing this. I basically ran from Cotula over here. I had a board meeting that ran past 3 o'clock, and he actually prepared everything for me to present to you all. So,
Mr. Bennett, Jorge Delgado, do you mind if I ask, do you have any, I guess, comparisons of somewhat of a before and after between certain warehouses or addresses as is listed on the screen, before it was designated a foreign trade zone and after?
We could get you that information, Mr. Delgado, and we can probably look at that. However, be mindful that most of these warehouses are being held by U.S. custom agents, whether it's a Mexican custom broker or an American custom broker. And if those individuals are working these warehouses, any product that is being transported from, let's say, point A to point B, and it's considered to be under interstate commerce, and it stops for the purpose of either facilitating the tariffs and the taxes that are due on that product when they're going into Mexico or coming from Mexico. As long as that product stops for those types of services or it's logistic, that product is considered to fall under interstate commerce. And therefore, any inventory that's being held by these type of individuals that are licensed in their warehouses, we cannot touch this product if it's being exported into a foreign country. And in most cases, you'll know that anybody that has a warehouse that's being held by a US custom broker or a Mexican custom broker, I can rest assured that pretty much they are exporting products back and forth. Now, on that note, be mindful that there's distribution centers, right? Where you have companies that are distributing products. And if that's the case, that changes everything, okay? Because once that product is taking off that route and certain business advantages take place, which in this case, let's say it comes to a warehouse, they're being all mixed up, and then they're being held, they're being sold to a distribution center, that product becomes taxable. And we assess a tax. However, in lieu of that, the Texas legislature came up with the exemption that we refer to as a Freeport exemption, okay? And it works very similar to the federal exemption that we just talked about. However, the difference is that the product that falls under Freeport, it has to be shipped out within 175 days, and only the amount that is shipped out of the state of Texas based on their retail sales. Okay, we figure out a prorated amount of their product that they shipped out of Texas versus the products that they sell in Texas. That percentage is then applied, and their inventory then gets exempt. So I'll give you an example. Let's assume that I have $100,000 inventory, and my records show that 75% of my retail receipts are for products that are sold out of the state of Texas. Then what the state says under the Freeport exemption is that $750,000 will be exempt and $250,000 will be taxable. So there's a great advantage to a distribution center that distributes this product to take advantage of their Freeport. Now, as a result of that Freeport exemption, we do have a lot of Freeport exempt accounts, and LC does exempt inventory that falls under the Freeport exemption. Now, the Freeport exemption is a state mandated exemption. And once again, we only tax the prorated amount of the goods that are sold here in Texas. And that's determined through their retail sales.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Very, yeah, thank you very much, Chief Villarreal, and thank you as well as your staff, Mr. Paraguay, Mr. Espasa as well. Really appreciate the presentation. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, I think that's it. And I want to thank you all for inviting me. Judge, it's been an honor working with you. I admire you. You've been a great role model. And I want to thank you for everything that you've done. Whether you share with me some ideas or give me some advice, it's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. No question about it. You're going to be missed. The background and the experience that you've been able to build over your 30 some odd years have been a tremendous asset to our community and to our county. And as you already acknowledged, okay, this type of background obviously has made a very, very positive impact in our county. So on behalf of members of our board, we want to thank you. And you, frankly, your obvious expertise already came through in this presentation, as we already are aware of it. The maquila industry is one of the reasons why a lot of this product that is in storage in warehouses is exempt, because that particular products will end up going into the maquilas on the Mexico side and will come back as a finished product. So from that point of view, of course, we are very much aware of and at the same time, it's obvious that you become well versed with, as you already acknowledged, we do play a major role in the maquila industry and in the tax exempt inventory that is very much part of the overall warehousing that we have, which is quite incredible. It's in the million square foot of warehousing that we actually have here in our
I would
community.
agree. I have once again put the names of the individuals that if you all need numbers, maybe would like to know what's being exported through these FTZ zones. These are the individuals that can probably provide some numbers and some guidance in regards to the amount that's being utilized in these FTZs. So SEPSA, I'm providing you this information in case, maybe down the road, you can get them to do a presentation for the board.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vedder. And if you can, definitely forward that presentation so we can share it with other members of the board.
All right, very good.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and I guess at this point, I'm done with my presentation.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin.
you.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, which is the January 2022 financial report. Mr. Cesar Vela. Chair recognizes Interim President Dr. Medina.
Chair, Marisa Tijerina for the record, just a question, would you like for them to come back on Thursday to present to the rest of the board members? Or are we good in just giving a summary to the board members on Thursday? Because there are 2 properties that are being requested for the foreign trade zone.
The chair recognizes Trustee Rangel.
Yeah, well, if we just take it as a informational item, who would be presenting, Mr. Vela? Most probably,
I can provide a summary for.
and do you feel comfortable? Would you want us to push the presentation? If you feel comfortable, we could do it. So you-
Yes, I could present a summary to the board on the information that's coming.
That'll work.
Thank you.
Mr. Vela, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Cesar Vela, Vice President of Finance. Included with your board packet, you received a copy of the January 2022 financial report. I have provided a summary of the report for January. For the month of January, the revenues are $48,941,067. That represents 79% of our budgeted revenue. At this point last year, we had revenues of $47,398,000, represented 80% of our revenue. So as you can see, we are pretty much in line compared to last year, based on our budgeted revenue. The only item, and we have reported this since the beginning of the fiscal year, is for tuition. Of course, we have 0 revenue. We are waiving the tuition charges for both the fall and the spring semester. We did it also for the winter semester and the second start for fall and spring. Oh, sorry. I do apologize for that. As I was mentioning, the only line item, as we've been mentioning, is the tuition revenue. Like I mentioned, we did waive tuition for both fall and spring semester. We will be charging the HERF funding for that. We have allocated 4.2 million to the budget. At this point, for the fall semester, we're looking at around 4.2 million and an additional 3 million for the spring semester. We do have the funding available, and we will be making that charged to the grant as a covered expenditure. On the tax revenue, we are at 84% of our budgeted revenue, 33.4 million. We are in line with what we have collected in previous years. As a matter of fact, we're a little bit ahead of compared to last year. Again, last year, the first couple of months, we did not have a collection rate that we were typically used to having. And again, that was attributed mostly because the offices were closed during that time due to the pandemic. Again, the revenue is 48.9 million for as of January 31st, represents 79.3% of the budgeted revenue. Again, no major variances to report at this time. For expenditures, the expenditures as of January 31st, 2022 are at 22,981,299. That's 37.24% of our budget. Last year, at this point, we were expenditures at 22,005,245, roughly 37.51%. Again, no major variances to report. Again, everything's in line to what we would expect when it comes to expenditures for the first 5 months of operations. Any questions on the expenditures? For the special appropriation, this is the Economic Development Center. The revenue for the year is at 67,225. I'm sorry, 67,225. That represents 32.6% of their budget. The expenditures are at 88,812. That represents 43.1% of the budget. Currently, right now, we do have a net decrease to the fund balance of 21,587. We do have a couple of activities that are coming up as part of the Laredo CARES Act 2. The Economic Development Center will be participating by providing trainings. They are projecting that there will be revenue coming in from that initiative. Again, we have allocated alongside with the city of Laredo, 2 million, 1 million by the city, 1 million by the college, using HERF fund money to provide these trainings to the community. Auxiliary services, these are the revenues that are coming from our student activities, our bookstore commission income, also the health clinic at the South Campus. For the year, the revenue is 1.2 million. That represents 94.3% of our budgeted revenue. The expenditures.
I'm not sure if I did, but the chair recognizes Ms. Tita Vela has joined the committee meeting.
The expenditures are at 346,393, 26.3% of our budget, for an increase of 896,104 to the fund balance. The item that has impacted the revenue here is, again, the incentive that has been offered. Again, this is one of the fees. The student activity fee was not waived as part of the incentive, but because we did have that incentive for the tuition, we did see an increase in semester credit hours, both for the fall and spring semesters, which has obviously impacted or increased the revenue in this one line item. And again, this is due to the incentive for the fall and spring semesters. On the expenditures, again, pretty much in line to what we are expected at this point of the fiscal year. The majority of the expenditures are coming from the student activities fund, approximately 290,382 in expenditures from that one division. And again, the majority is attributed to the student life budget. For restricted funds, we do have revenues for the year of 21,014,545, expenditures of 21,014,545. The bulk of the revenue is from federal grants. We have 19,828,000. 8.3 million or almost 8.4 million is federal Pell Grant revenue. And that is for the fall semester. We are still working on posting the spring semester. In addition, we do have the HERF revenue that's being recognized for the 5 months of operations. Out of the 51.8 million that have been received for HERF funding and CARES Act funding, we still have $12 million available. Out of those 12 million, we are planning to charge the 4.2 million in tuition waivers for the fall and approximately 3 million for the spring semester. We're also planning to charge the 1.5 million for the stipend that was approved. We have already recognized half of that, which was paid out in December. And we also have $1 million that has been set aside for the CARES, the Laredo CARES Act 2.0. So looking at those expenditures that are still pending, we have approximately about $3 million that are still pending to be encumbered. We did consult on filing for an extension, a no-cost extension, and we did receive notification from the Department of Education that they will start accepting requests for extensions 30 days before the grant date. So that would put us the first week of April when we would need to submit the no-cost extension request. For the facilities master plan, phase 3, we began the fiscal year with a balance of 21,968,255. We have a recognized interest revenue for the year of 58,794, and we have expenditures of 1.5 million for the year. We do have a net decrease of 1,467,490 for a balance as of January 31st of 20,500,765. Now, we have presented a plan to the board on how we have allocated those remaining 20 million. As part of the tomorrow's building committee meeting, we will be updating the board on some of the changes that are being recommended based on the reallocation of the law enforcement training center project. We have approximately 7.5 million that we'll be bringing back to the board with a plan to reallocate some of those funds.
Chair recognizes Judge Martinez.
I have a question, Mr. Vela, coming back again to the fund balance of your bonds, which is $20 million. Are we subject to possible being, I don't want to call it a fine, but that, you know, as you are aware, okay, when we float a bond issue for different, you know, investments, so to speak, within the facilities, and we end up with a considerable balance. This is the case here, $20 million. Is that $20 million being subject to potential problems for us in that we have yet to invest that money?
The IRS does take a look at the time it takes to spend down the balance. And so obviously that is an item that we have looked at both with bond counsel and our financial advisor. And obviously the recommendation has always been to spend it down as soon as we can. One of the things that we have done is obviously we do have a plan and we have allocated those funds to projects. So there is that already in place for us as that will help us in case we were to get audited. Now, as far as arbitrage, when it comes to investments, we have a negative arbitrage because interest rates have been low.
Yes.
So every year we do go through an annual review. And at this point, we are in compliance. We're not subject to penalties. because of negative arbitrage. But as far as spending on the balance, which when we went out for the bond was 100 million, obviously there is a time limit that they look at, preferably. Again, we're right now already in year 6, getting to year 7. So the best, I guess, the number that they look at is 5 years again, but we do have a plan in place and we have encumbered or allocated the funds to future projects. And work has, again, been done on those projects. Some of those projects were brought to the board for approval, and obviously we have an architect in place that has been working on the development of those plans.
I might bring up the possibilities if the board eventually decides to go into building that in-house firing facility, firing range facility. That, of course, will have an impact on that outstanding $20 million that is still part of that overall fund that was floated by the college.
Yes, well, like I mentioned, for the building committee, we do have
A plan?
an agenda to bring to the board for
Yes, sir.
review, which includes some work for what we call the Law Enforcement Training Center. And obviously, it's more now of some remodeling for some of the existing facilities. And again, we do have an amount set aside allocated for that project. And again, this is looking at the Department of Homeland program and Police Academy and the criminal justice programs that we have here at the college.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Judge.
The next item is the M&O tax collections. As you can see here, for the fiscal year 2022, as of January, the collections stand at 33,423,868. That represents about 83.59% of our tax levy. If you can see, last year we were at 80.87, and again, those first 2 months, we did see a drop in collections. Overall, we ended the fiscal year 2021 with a collection rate of 101%. But if we look at fiscal year 2020, we can see that the collections for this fiscal year are pretty much in line, where back then the collections were at 83.66%. And again, we did budget a 99% collection rate this year as part of our budget process. The last item that we have is just to update you on the fund balance. We began the fiscal year with a fund balance, a negative fund balance of 2,545,744. Again, that is attributed to the liabilities that we have to report for the pension and health insurance benefits for retirees. Again, but when we look at the actual cash balance, we do have 56,722,611 as a general operating fund balance. Again, for the year, revenues are at 48.9 million, and the expenditures at 22.9 million for the first 5 months of operations. Right now, we do have a net change of 25.9 million in the fund balance. Now, last year, we did see an increase of 12 million to the fund balance. 5 million was from savings from operations, which is pretty much in line to what we've seen the last 2-3 years. The additional 7 million came from actually reimbursement from the HERF funding for lost revenue for 2020 and 2021. That concludes the update on the financial report for January. Any questions?
Any questions from members of the committee?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Valley. Really appreciate it on the report. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is the November 2021 quarterly investment report. Mr. Cesar Vela.
Yes, this item, we're asking the board to approve the quarterly investment report as part of our investment policy and the Public Funds Investment Act requirements. The board is required to receive the investment report quarterly and approve it. As of November 30th, we did have 23,938 in deposits. 71 in money market account with our bank depository. Investment pools of 18,776,326. The yields currently are at 65 basis points for the money market accounts and 8 basis points for the investment pool under the TASB investment pool, and the FIT investment pool is currently yielding 7 basis points.
Any questions from members of the committee? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vela. Move on to agenda item number 6, plan of action for audit findings. Mr. Cesar Vela.
Yes, you received a copy of the plan of action for the audit findings that were presented last month by the external auditors. We do have in the booklet, we have 4 tabs. There were 4 findings that were brought up to our attention by the auditors. Under tab 1, you'll find the first one, which deals with the payment to train in the amount of $148,193.04. This payment was made in October of 2021 for the HVAC upgrade project at the South Campus. The finding that was brought up by the auditors, or the recommendation that was brought up by the auditors, is that they are recommending that we implement the control procedures to ensure that change orders are brought to the board for approval, and also to make sure that the payment documentation is reviewed properly before payments are applied. And also, one of the recommendations was that we did have a pending refund from Train, and that we pursue any pending refunds. Just to provide some information on this one finding, there was a misunderstanding from Train. Originally, we did have a change order that was brought to the board for approval, and that change order was in the amount of $187,985. What happened in this transaction is that the accounting department from Train made an error on their side. For some reason, they recorded a deductible change order in the amount of $109,193.04. When our accounting office was reconciling at the end of the year in September of 2021, they brought this item to Train's attention. Train actually went back and reviewed the records and identified the mistake. They went ahead and invoiced us for the $109,193. In addition, they also invoiced us for a pending invoice of $39,000. So that makes up the payment of $148,000 that was issued out in October. Now, this payment was made, we do have a procedure in place. And that procedure calls for the application for payment being reviewed by the architect, the project manager. In this case, because this is an internal project, we don't have an architect of record working for this under this project. The documentation was reviewed by physical plant supervisor that was overseeing the project, and the physical plant director before coming to accounting for payment. So again, there was certification that the work had been completed, and the invoice was owed to Train. Now, we did also, again, as mentioned by the auditors, we were aware that there was a credit pending from Train, and we did contact Train, and they have issued a refund. And you can find copies of the checks. They were both received on February 16, one for the amount of $16,650, and there was a check received for $40,394.71. The $40,394.71 is the actual amount that was owed under this transaction. And again, the credit due was because Train, we had an allowance under this project for water disposal charges that were not utilized, and therefore the credit and the refund was due. So we did receive the refund. We have addressed the concerns from the auditors. Now, we have asked Train also to, for future transactions, whenever a credit is due to the college, that they not apply it to a pending project or an existing project. Currently, we do have a couple of projects with Train ongoing. And we've asked that the accounting needs to be kept separate on their books also, so that we can account for each project individually. So, they've noted that, and they've made their accounting office aware of that. As far as the timeline, well, we don't have a timeline. We have addressed the item. We are, again, we did review this documentation with the auditors, and they were satisfied with the information that had been submitted to them to address this item. And again, the responsible parties that worked on this were who were in charge of this were the accounting office and the fiscal plant office. There is no cost. Again, there are no additional costs to be incurred to address this one finding. Any questions on this one item? The second item, which is under tab 2, and this has to do with the recommendation from the auditors that we change to a bi-weekly payroll for all of our hourly employees, which would be our classified staff. We are currently working on a plan. We do want to transition to a bi-weekly payroll for classified staff as of beginning September 1st, 2022, with the beginning of the 2023 fiscal year. So we are again working on some of the frequently asked questions. We are going to be scheduling informational sessions for employees to inform them of the changes and what impacts will the employee be facing. And again, we're trying to minimize the impact to the employees. Again, we do have a recommended calendar that's included in your board packet, along with the sample of the commonly asked questions and answers. Also, part of the activities that we want to hold is, again, meetings with the classified staff organization to inform them of and answer any questions that they may have regarding this change. And also having meetings with the individual departments, for example, physical plant, campus police. And then also having any question and answer sessions. Again, the timeline that we're looking for this one finding is 5 months. We are targeting to have the first bi-weekly payroll on September 9th of 2022. The responsible parties or the offices that are currently working on addressing this finding is the payroll office, the human resource office, and information technology. We do have an anticipated cost of $65,000, and this is we have identified that we will need an additional personnel or an additional staff member at the payroll office. Now, we do have a position already budgeted and it's currently vacant. So again, the cost is $65,000, however, it's already in the budget. So we will be taking it from a vacant position. And like I said, included with your packet are a sample of the question and answers, as well as a copy of the proposed bi-weekly payroll calendar. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Chair recognizes Judge Mercurio Martinez.
I certainly do feel very much in favor of what is being proposed by the auditors on your maintenance personnel, because that basically provides a much easier manner in the payroll rather than the way it has been previously. Now, I have another question. Do the faculty still pay or being paid once a month?
No, Judge, they're actually on a semi-monthly payroll.
Now it's semi-monthly?
Yes.
Faculty?
Yes,
Faculty
and
payroll.
this proposed change is only right now going to be affecting the classified staff. Again, we did have a discussion internally if this would be implemented for all employees. At this point right now, there is agreement between the departments that are working on this initiative to do the classified staff, and then we'll be looking at or exploring the idea of maybe doing that change for everyone. Again, we will send out a questionnaire for those employees and see if they would be in favor of also making the change to a bi-weekly payroll.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Mr. Esteban Rangel.
So the questions came about from staff, that's how you compiled it from everybody that you were asking? Or
These are frequently asked questions, and
I'm sorry.
these are frequently asked questions, and actually what we did is we actually reached out to other institutions that have made this switch.
Okay.
Community colleges that used to pay either monthly or semi-monthly that has made the switch to bi-weekly payroll. So they're commonly asked questions, and again, some of the questions were obviously modified to our scenarios, but again, it's mostly coming from other institutions that have made those changes.
And our payroll manager feels comfortable with doing this transition?
Yes, she's been part of the discussions, and actually she's here today with us. And again, we did cover also the additional workload that will be coming, that will be part of this transition. And that's why the recommendation is to transfer a vacancy to provide an additional staff member for that office.
And will the vacancy be for this upcoming budget? Or is it gonna be immediate, so the person can be able to start the
No,
process and get
this
training?
will actually be immediate, once, yes, because we're actually starting, we have already started on the plan. And like I said, it's a 5-month timeline. We're targeting to have the first bi-weekly payroll September the 9th of 2022. So
Okay.
this person will come in and assist, again, part of the daily operations and also on
The
providing
transition,
assistance
yeah.
on the transition.
Okay, great job, thank you.
And the next item is on under tab 3 was the capital asset inventory. Again, based on the review from the auditors, they determined that the property inventories had not been completed for the last 2 fiscal years. So their recommendation is that we do a physical inventory at least once every 2 years, and that the records are reconciled, our property records are reconciled to our financial records. Also, there was a recommendation that equipment purchases be promptly recorded in the capital assets to ensure proper control and accountability of assets purchased. So right now, the plan of action that we have, working with property inventory, is to complete the reconciliation of the inventories that were done this last 2 fiscal years. Both campuses have an inventory. The only missing part is the reconciliation between the property inventories and the financial records. So the plan calls for reconciling all assets 5,000 and over first, and all assets that have been purchased using federal grant funds. We are going to be, as part of the documentation for any adjustments or write-offs, obviously make sure that all the documentation is in place, and if necessary, we will be obtaining appropriate police reports for any missing items. Now, one of the other items is that the property inventory department is evaluating software that will help us automate the process. As of this morning, I had not received a quote yet. This afternoon, just before the meeting, Mr. Chavez shared that information with me. We are looking right now, or at least the software that they have looked at, there is an initial cost of $19,000 to acquire the software, the hardware, and the scanners. And then there would be an annual cost of $7,000 to maintain. Again, this is one of the options. We probably be looking at other options. In addition to this process, we are also going to be allocating or adding a staff member to the property inventory staff, as we mentioned. We have been short-staffed in one department. Again, the position is coming from a vacancy, no addition to the budget. It will be identified to a vacancy. And we're also going to probably be allocating around 30,000 for temporary help in case it's needed. And this will be for 2023. Again, when we brought this item, or when this item was brought by the auditors, again, the recommendation was to do a physical inventory every 2 years. Now, the board expressed that they would prefer to have it on an annual basis. So that is the plan, to have an annual audit at both campuses next year. And again, the plan is to obviously automate the process by the end of the fiscal year and have the addition of that one staff member, and if needed, we will be allocating as part of the budget for 2023 an additional 30,000 for contracted services. This will be for temporary services.
Question. Chair recognizes Mr. Blanca. Thank you. The staff member is for the next budget, or you're saying that it's currently budgeted, right?
It is a vacant position, so we could technically hire that person.
Within
this
this
summer.
budget?
Yes,
Okay. And then the 30,000 is pretty much for like staff force or something? like
that would be for next fiscal year for the inventory process. If we feel that we will need additional help, this is to acquire temporary staffing.
I was really thinking it was gonna be more expensive on a new system. But, you know, for the cost of that, you know, to ensuring our assets, you know, I think it's crucial that we make that investment. So hopefully, we get some type of software that would be able to help expedite this at an annual basis and give the board access to those assets, and the president's office and the board, you know, access to having those assets. So that's very good, Mr. Brennan.
And the idea on the software is to bring an item for approval, hopefully at the earliest March, latest April meeting, to start working on the implementation of the software. And so again, we still have some homework to do when it comes to the software. The good thing is that, as you mentioned, the price is not close to the 50,000 that's required to issue out a full-blown RFP. So we'll look at options and then bring a recommendation to the board either in March or April.
That's good. Good job, sir. Thank you.
And the last item, which is under tab 4, has to do with the fraud hotline. And this is it's actually an item that had been brought up in the last fiscal year's audit also. And with the help of Mr. Chavez, we have approached a company, Navix, that offers the ethics point hotline solution. And this is a solution that is used by some universities and colleges here in Texas. Actually, our higher institution across Laredo uses this system. And the good point about it is that it does provide not just the availability of staff or students to report fraud or other issues like safety issues via a phone line, but they can do it either using their mobile device or on the web. They have the option again to remain anonymous. And the information is confidential. And one of the other features, again, that's important is that it also provides us with an audit trail. We will be able to manage those incidents that are reported through the system. And we can then, once those incidents come in, are reviewed and assigned to the appropriate college employee that will be handling that investigation. The implementation timeline that was given by the company is 6 to 8 weeks to get the system up and running. We are projecting to have it ready and up and running for the beginning of next fiscal year, September 1st, 2022. Now, the initial cost for year one is 6,087, and then the annual cost for year two would be 4,587. Then year one is slightly higher just because of the implementation costs. Now, the departments that will be working on this initiative is obviously the finance office, risk management and compliance, and obviously with the assistance of information technology on setting it up. Included in your packet is an actual presentation that was given to us by the company with some information and also a copy of the proposal that was received. Any questions?
Question.
Chair recognizes trustee Van Head.
Thank you. So then you mentioned those 4 departments that are gonna be involved in this. Will all 4 have access to the information, or are we gonna be very discreet and just assign it to one particular, I guess, department or department head, or how is that gonna work?
Yeah, and that's a good question, Mr. And actually, we have discussed where the administration of this particular hotline is going to be. And I know I have here Dr. Ariasola, but it most likely is gonna fall under his area, compliance.
Yeah, I was
risk-
thinking as
risk and
well.
compliance. And again, from there, they would receive the incident or the concern from whether it's a student or staff, and then from there, they would send it out to the appropriate college staff member that would be doing the investigation or the follow-up.
So I guess my other question is, we're gonna make sure that an administrator isn't not, no offense to a clerk, but you know, an administrator that is gonna have that responsibility. That's what I'm thinking, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And just again, part of the setup is obviously looking at the chain of command, right? And who's the person that's gonna be administering the system or taking care of receiving those concerns. And again, if it so happens to be that a concern comes in for the individual that's actually monitoring or in charge of the system, then there will be a second person that will get that. It won't automatically come to that person. The system has that capability to identify, hey, this is coming for the let's say I am the administrator and the complaint or the concern comes and it's actually, I'm the person that is being named on the concern, then it would be routed to that second person. In this case, it could be Dr. Ariasola or the college president, and they would get that.
Very good information. Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions from members of the committee? Thank you very much, Mr. Rutherford. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 7. Discuss the analysis of relevant issues pertaining to some of the athletics programs and approve a proposal for the implementation of Laredo College athletics program. Pass it forward to Laredo College administration.
Marisela Tijerina, interim president for the record. We want to present this topic in 2 committee meetings, one the finance committee and the program policy. Simply because by adding athletics back into our budgets, I want to remind the board that the budgets were not accounted for in athletics. So now to add the 4 sports, what I mean by 4 sports, the tennis women, tennis male, softball and soccer, it will impact the budget. And we're proposing, as mentioned in the board workshop in November, which was option 2, that there's only a maximum amount of monies that we can allocate, but it will affect other budgets. And so for fairness of the decision that was made, it is important that we discuss it during the finance and then program policy. So tomorrow, program policy committee will see the implementation of the new recruitment practices, the fundraising, the how to increase student success rates, things that were not as successful in the athletic program, and part of the new implementation practices that are going to be adopted by bringing back partial or some of the athletics programs. So today on the finance, Mr. Vela and Dr. Arresola will further explain the financial impact of the decision that was made on December 7th at 2021 at special board meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Vela, floor is yours.
As Dr. Tijerina mentioned, we have been meeting to review the impact of to the budgets of reinstating the three athletic sports that have been discussed previously by administration and the board. So looking at the budgets for 2023, and these are budgets that we have reviewed both with administration and the coaches. And we have agreed that we can bring back the three programs, again, with some restrictions and obviously some recommendations for $765,988.84. And again, with the understanding that we will need to make some changes. If you look there in 2020, when we had all the athletic programs, this was just before COVID hit. The budgets for the athletic programs were 1.4 million. And that included the athletics office, the sports complex, and both volleyball and baseball. For 2023, we are proposing to again bring back tennis, soccer, and softball, and a small, and the athletic office, with the exception, again, not bringing back an athletic director. And now the reason that you see an increase from 2020 to 2023 under the athletics line item of 40,695 is because part of the discussions that we've had with the coaches is to allocate part of the 765, have a small allocation for scholarships. So the scholarships have been centralized under the athletics line item. And again, to be distributed amongst the three programs. Again, the discussion has been obviously with restrictions. The scholarships would be for local athletes. With the understanding that if they do want to recruit international students or out-of-district students, that would have to be there would have to be a fundraising campaign to raise the funds to provide scholarships for international students.
Mr. Vela, if I can interrupt you real quick. What is the amount on scholarships for the athletics?
We had identified it was about 30,000 per sport. So we're looking at about 90,000. Yeah. 75,000 per sport, yes.
And now it's 90 in total.
90 in total. And again, yes, and again, when we worked out the budget, and again, when we reviewed it with the coaches, we looked at it, they said the 765 will work. And again, the distribution between the line items is still a work in progress. The 90,000 are actually coming from, we had allocated about 120,000 for insurance, for the sports insurance. We did receive a quote for 30,000. So the 90,000 is being then transferred to the scholarships for that use. Now, the funding for the two sports that are coming from student activities, again, will still be coming from that fund. So we do have to make a couple of adjustments to the student life budgets. Yes, and I'll go ahead and defer to Mr. Arresola for.
And I do want to remind the board that student activity gets tricky, right? Because that revenue base is based on our enrollment. And so we're, of course, hopeful that our enrollment will continue to rise. But and remember, traditional students are the only ones that pay this student activity. Okay, so not the dual. So that will always impact that budget item because it's always going to be contingent on our enrollment numbers.
Chair recognizes Ms. Vela.
I think one of the things that we really need to remember and keep in mind is no more cares. No more cares. And up to now, I think we've been very, very fortunate to have given our students the free tuition for the fall and the spring. And that's gonna come to an end, so, you know, we're in for a rude awakening. To say the least, because that's, and again, like I said, you're absolutely right. The only ones that pay this fee is
Tradition.
the traditional students that come on campus, not any of our dual enrollment early college. I don't even think, what about the, I'm sorry, what about the, online? They don't pay it either? They do pay it.
Online traditional students do pay the fee, but dual online will not.
They're not, okay.
Right.
Yeah, but still, I mean, that's,
Get closer to the mic.
okay, I'm sorry. But I didn't speak loud, but I guess because there.
There you go.
There I go. That's one thing that has bothered me quite a bit.
And thank you, Ms. Vela, because if you know, Cesar earlier pointed out that $7.2 million was appropriated to make up that loss of our enrollment. So, you know, I just want to, I hate to sound like a dead horse, right? But, you know, these are concerns that administration has expressed. And so, you know, just letting know so that, you know, we're again hopeful for the best. But it's also important for us to keep conveying to administration, you know, the reality of what's going on.
Chair recognizes Judge Martinez.
Thank you. The way I actually see it here, from the original 2020 budget of 1.4 million plus and the 2023 of 764, basically then there's 682,000 are really savings rather than actual expense. So in a manner of speaking, the overall budget is not going through this additional $682,000 expenditure, correct?
Not technically savings, Judge, because they were not part of the budget to begin with this fiscal year. So when we look at the 2023 proposal, we're actually adding 764,000 to the budget, to the current budget now. As Dr. Delina mentioned, again, half of that budget is coming from a student fee. So it's going to be important, obviously, enrollment. So right now, again, working on coming up with a budget that will be workable to bring these three sports back is we are going to have to make some adjustments, and Dr. Ariasola will go over some of that information. But again, just to reiterate what Dr. Delina mentioned, this is obviously the budgets that are coming from the student activity fee are going to be crucial, and again, because they're tied to that fee. So again, this is for 2023. We most likely are going to have this conversation again in 2024 when it comes to the budget process.
Chair.
Chair recognizes Mr. Rangel.
Yes, thank you. So just to make note on this, 90,000 will be on scholarships and the full 90,000 will be for local students only. Is that correct?
That is
So
correct.
that's a good thing. My other question is, you mentioned if for whatever reason they want to give a scholarship to somebody from out of state or out of country, the coaches will have to fundraise this scholarship. Am I correct?
That is correct, sir. Yes.
Okay. You'll be able to explain based on the numbers that you're giving to us, Dr. Diego or Dr. Ariasola, what departments will be affected, right? It's in this presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Members of the Finance and Audit Committee, everybody, David Ariasola, interim provost Vice President for Academic Affairs and Compliance. Before I move to my next slide, it's a good to note here that the three or technically four sports that we're bringing back, right? We count men's tennis, women's tennis, women's softball, and then soccer as, so technically four sports that we're bringing back. We'll be operating at about, close to half of the budget that they were operating before the pandemic and before all of this happened, right? So when we presented to the board in November and then in December, we had a list of innovations that we had planned for the college. So these are the things that we were thinking of doing with the money that was allocated to athletics, right? So from new certificates, a new response program, a lot of new services that we were either thinking of bringing in or expanding. Now, this is not to say that all these are dead, right? They're in limbo now, right? So we will have to either slow down in the progress or find other ways to fund some of these proposed innovations, right? So several of these programs are already on board. Like I said, just a little bit slower to move them along. Right? Now, the programs that were particularly affected by, and these are programs that we had to either reduce their budget or cut altogether. But in the student activities budget side, we're going to reduce or maybe even cut, right, campus rec, right? Reduce money allotted for clubs, for graduation activities, for student activities, for professional development, new student orientation, student leadership, the student activity support staff, the wellness program. We're going to be eliminating some of the vacancies that's more than freezing. So we have vacancies that are frozen. In order to accommodate for some of the things that we're going to be doing, we'll have to eliminate those positions altogether. And also reducing some of the contract service, right? Now, I bring up this list and the slide before, not necessarily as a negative, right? So it could be that way, right? But one of the things that we did this last month is we met with Coach Ivana and Coach Lancer are here today, and we worked with them, and we asked them to sacrifice some things, and we sacrificed some things too. So we came to a good compromise and a good working plan. Again, there's a lot of programs that will be affected, including their own in this new plan, right? So I think we're on a solid foundation. We know that we're cognizant, Ms. Vela, about what impact not having the CARES and the HERF money is going to have, particularly on our enrollment, because we're hoping it doesn't, and we're going to work to make sure that it doesn't. But
To the 50-50.
in the end, all the incentives we're providing was giving a lot of those students opportunities to come to school. But those are the programs that are affected. Again, the wellness program is one of the ones that we decided maybe just to completely cut altogether, as well as the campus recreation. But there are things that decisions that we feel we had to make, and to move forward with this new implementation plan. I'll take any questions.
Any questions from members of the committee? Chair recognizes Mr. Rangel.
So, thank you, Chair. So you're gonna take this to the program policy as well, right?
Correct.
What's the next step after that?
Thursday.
Thursday.
It's on Thursday's meeting.
Right, sorry.
Chair recognizes Dr. Tijerina.
Marisa Tijerina for the record. Yes, so it'll be presented today for the financial impact program policy for the implementation, and then on Thursday for a vote of the plan that I think that was the motion the last time, for us to present to you all, what programs and implementation. Actually, the way it's written, that's how the motion was made, to discuss the analysis of relevant issues pertaining to some of the athletic program. So some entail not bringing all athletics program from the last meeting and to approve the proposal. So this is a proposal on the finances, the proposal on the implementation. So the board just needs to review that plan and make final approval of it so that we can move forward with the plan.
And you mentioned that you met with the athletic department to be able to give and take. Did we also meet with the student services departments and also, understanding, of course, wish we could give them everything they want, but what could be affected, and they also do understand this.
Yes, we have met with student life, and on the student services side, on wellness, so everybody impacted. Because wellness is, we have a human resources part for the employees, and we also have the student portion as well.
Student recreation.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, Mr. Rangel, the implementation plan, what we're presenting today is more on the finance side.
Yes.
And just to be clear on some of these things, like the graduation activities and the student activity support staff, it doesn't mean that we're cutting those altogether, right? We're maybe looking at their budgets, but a lot of what's gonna happen there is they're going to be moved over to our general operating fund, right? So they'll no longer be part of the student activities, but they'll be in our general operating. So we'll be able to cover those there. But a part of the implementation plan will include a presentation by our athletic staff, and will include some other things that the ripple effect goes beyond just finance. It goes to organization and our structure and so on. So we'll be presenting all of that as part of our plan tomorrow and then again on Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Good information.
Any other questions from members of the committee?
I guess I would like to ask one.
Chair recognizes Ms. Vella.
I just thought of something. Will anybody lose their job, especially with the wellness and the recreation, student recreation? Because I know, don't we have anybody
That's a
that
good question.
works in those areas? Will they be affected?
So Loretta, VP of Finance for the record. Ms. Vela, no, right now the plan is obviously to eliminate vacancies. So as Dr. Ariosola mentioned, we do have some line items that we have identified that we will no longer be able to support through the student activities budget. The idea is to transfer some of those items over to the general operating budget. But in order to be able to do that, we do have to make some cuts in the GO side. And that would most likely come from vacancies. So at this point right now, there are no plans of letting anybody go. Again, it would be the elimination of vacancies at this point.
Chair recognizes Dr. Maricela.
But the elimination of vacancies entails for the organization, Laredo College, not to be able to hire positions. And the majority of your vacancy positions are always going to be in academic affairs.
Which means faculty.
Correct.
Any other questions? No, Chair. All right.
Scary. Very, very scary.
Thank you, administration, very much. Thank you, Dr. Maricela. Move on to agenda item number 8, which is the approval of budgeted cash matching funds required for the U.S. Small Business Administration Women's Business Center Minority Serving Institutions Grant Application. Dr. Nora Orgasa.
Good evening, members of the Finance and Audit Committee. For the record, Dr. Nora Gasa, Vice President for Research Development and External Affairs. The approval is needed for an application. We don't have the grant yet. We're going to apply. We need to 50% of the $150,000 grant. We need to match it, half with in-kind and half with cash. So the half is the $37,500 for the first year of the application. Then if we are funded, then we would come back if we are allowed to continue for an additional 4 years. But this is originally it's just for the first year application. So the funding would come from the account under restricted scholarship funds. And we do have the funding. It has been checked by our Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. So if you've been following our Latina Entrepreneur Academy, for which we already have over 50 women that started the academy, and we're gonna start a second one. We were approved not for more money, but to bring in, because 250 women applied. So as you can see, there is a need, and the closest small business, women's business center is 141 miles away in San Antonio.
Congratulations.
Well, right, that we're just gonna apply. We're just gonna apply.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Garza. Any comments or questions from members of the committee?
Great job.
I certainly compliment you, Dr. This is something that obviously is going to be a great benefit, not only in the case, of course, of the women, but to the Laredo College itself. And my compliments to you for following
Thank you.
up on
A
this.
little $7,000 grant that came in from LULAC Institute and Coca-Cola Foundation. We had no idea. Had no idea. I thought going home Friday, there would be like 7 or 10, what am I gonna do? And I came in and they said, no, Dr. Garza, we had 179 applicants that first weekend
Oh, wow.
Wonderful.
and up to 250. So we're very excited. And then this landed, opportunity came. So fingers crossed, but
Definitely.
we hope for your approval of this on Thursday.
Let me offer my services. I don't know if you're aware of it, but I'm a former regional administrator of SBA under the Carter administration. And then, of course, I was a director of the local over at TAMU.
We will tap you.
So
Absolutely, sir.
whatever
You're
you
hired.
can do,
You're
in
hired.
helping you out
For free.
by all means, count on it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And again, I certainly congratulate you with my compliments to you and your staff.
Yeah, this would be our first SBA grant application.
That's excellent, excellent.
So
Thank you
Judge,
so
we
much.
can count on
Appreciate
that
it.
grant doubling to 500,000, right? Oh, thank you, Dr. Garza.
Great job.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on to agenda item number 9. Ratification of donor requested endowment and regular scholarship matching funds. Chair recognizes Ms. Sara Pompa.
Good evening, members of the Finance and Audit Committee. For the record, Sara Alicia Pompa, Director of Donor Relations and Special Projects. I wanted to share some good news today and request your consideration regarding ratification and approval of funding, matching funds for scholarships and for endowment. The first one I'd like to mention is the Sylvia Lorraine Hines Memorial Scholarship. The scholarship has been established. We had a check presentation on February the 4th, a couple of weeks ago. The family of the late Sylvia Lorraine Hines provided us with a $25,000 check for scholarship. This is specific to students from LBJ and United High School. The family is requesting a scholarship match for the same amount. We do have funding available through the scholarship matching account, which is, it's a restricted account, but it's not a general operating fund. So that is one of the funds that we have recently established. We also have the creation of 3 other scholarship accounts. I'm very excited to share that with you all today. One of them is actually for an endowment, which will eventually generate enough interest to create an endowed scholarship. This endowment is on behalf of the Bruni Sames family, and this is to support the Ernest and Buddy Bruni Jr. Memorial Endowment. They provided us funds in the amount of $20,000, and they are requesting a match. We also have the Millicent B. Slaughter Scholarship, also for $20,000, provided by Mrs. Jackie Weimer from San Antonio. And as an A side, I'd like to add that Ms. Weimer is the granddaughter of Herman and Lila Mae O'Keefe. Perhaps, Judge, you might be familiar with who they are. This is a family that donated the funding for the bell tower at the South Campus. And we also have some scholarships on their behalf. So that amount of scholarship is $20,000. They are requesting a match. And the last scholarship that we have for consideration is the Arturo Navarro Jr. Memorial Scholarship. Mr. Navarro, the late Mr. Navarro, was an instructor with the LVN program. department, and his wife, Mrs. Guadalupe Navarro, is the one that has instituted this particular scholarship. This scholarship is for $5,000. And again, we are requesting a match. This particular scholarship is specific to students who are LVN or ADN students and who have the NORA certification. So basically that is what I have to share, again, for your consideration and hopefully approval so that we can go ahead and move with providing the match so that our students can receive their scholarship.
Great job.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions from members of the committee?
Great job.
Thank you.
Great news.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Ms. Pompa. All right, we'll go ahead and move on.
Yeah, she covered 10.
Okay. All right, agenda item number 11, approval of a 3-year license and support agreement with eVisions for Argos reporting, Form Fusion, and IntelliCheck software subscription. Chair recognizes Mr. Albert Chavez.
Good evening, members of the Finance and Audit Committee. For the record, Albert Chavez, Senior Director of Information Technology. For this particular item, we're requesting approval to enter into a 3-year license agreement with the company eVisions. They provide 3 products that our campus is using. The first one is the eVisions reporting, Form Fusion, and IntelliCheck. Those particular products are used by the IT department. Form Fusion or Argos reporting generate reports out of the Banner Student Information System. The Bursars, purchasing, accounting, HR, and payroll use IntelliCheck and Form Fusion. Form Fusion is used to generate forms like the W-2 forms, student tuition statements, and so forth. And IntelliCheck is used to do direct deposit to for payroll and payments to vendors. The total amount for the 3-year agreement is $206,866, which will be paid in 3 payments, 3 annual payments. And that is a budgeted item that we have between the different departments, IT and the other departments mentioned.
Any questions from members of the committee? No. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chavez. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
A motion of a second?
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
are adjourned. It is 7:13 PM. Thank you, everyone.